This guy was an actual mummy. It was just a skeleton and leathery bits of skin covering him. That was memorable because when I took his hand to turn the body over, it came off. So that's what mummies are like. I'm Barbara Butcher, and I'm a death investigator. I'm here to answer your questions from the honesty box. What does a death investigator actually do? Everything. We look around at the entire scene of a crime, or any death for that matter. We get a sense for how this person lives because how you live often determines how you die. I'll photograph the scene. I'll work in cooperation with the police department, looking for fingerprints, DNA, blood spatter, and then I'll hone in on the body. And on the body, that's where my investigative powers lie. The scene belongs to the police. The body belongs to me. And so what I do is I carefully look for what killed this person and how did they die. So I'm looking for bullet wounds, any kind of gunshot wounds, knife wounds, stabbing, asphyxiation, strangulation, ligature marks. And then I'm also looking for evidence. I learn who the person is, school teacher or drug dealer. I learn from the witnesses what happened, what did you hear, what did you see, and tell me about this person. So then I do my photographs, I show everything I'm finding to the crime scene detectives, and together we figure it out. What happened? Who did it? That's my job. Oh, describe the smell of death. It's unmistakable. Now, an ordinary dead body found fairly quickly just smells warm and organic, an earthy kind of smell. But a decomposed body, my God, there is nothing worse. There is a hellacious smell that comes from a decomposing person. Basically what happens is the bacteria that live in our body, we keep them in check with our immune systems. Once you die, there's no immune system. And now those bacteria can run wild. And as they begin eating things, blood cells, flesh, tissue, they give off a gas. And that gas is like nothing you can ever imagine. It's like a strawberry milkshake made with garlic and dog feces. I can walk past any building in New York and tell you if somebody died, because I'll smell it on the street. It's nasty, and there's nothing you can do to cover it up. The only thing, cops usually take some dry coffee and burn it in a pot. That somewhat mitigates the smell, but it gets in your hair and your clothes, everywhere. It's god-awful. How many cases have you worked on? Were they all homicides? Thank God, no. I've worked on approximately 5,500 cases investigating the deaths of each of those people. 680 of them were homicides. Now, one of the interesting things is coming into what I think is a homicide, because I've been told that. Then it turns out, no, it was an accident, and I can prove those things. Oh, the most unusual ways to die. Here's the thing. When an elevator door opens, there's a slight chance that elevator will suddenly drop. And if you happen to step into the elevator at the critical moment and it drops, you're going to be compressed horribly. And it's happened, and it is an awful, awful thing. I would say it's generally deaths by misadventure, things like subway surfing, riding on the top of a subway car as it speeds through a tunnel full of steel projections and wires and things that are guaranteed to knock your head off. So yeah, those are unusual. What can a dead body tell you about a crime? Everything. Everything you find on that body, everything you see, everything you smell can tell you so much about how they died. Smell. If you are over a decedent, you see their mouth is open, and you smell choke cherry or bitter almonds, that's cyanide death. Now, did the person drink it themselves for a suicide? Or did someone force them to drink it in a homicide? The sight of a body If you tell me that someone died peacefully, that they had heart disease and everything looks hunky-dory, but yet that lady is laying in her bed with the covers half off and her arms stretched out and a look on her face. And the drawers, the jewelry drawer, the lingerie drawer, they're pulled open, they're ransacked. And that person just doesn't look right to you. It's a feeling, it's a gut instinct that you get. That tells me homicide. And one of the things we do is we lift up the lip and we look at the frenulum. That's the little web that holds your lip down. And if we see abrasions or teeth marks, that means someone clamped their hand over an old woman's mouth and smothered her. And what does she do? She move her head like that to try and get away, and that's what causes those abrasions. Then I know it's a homicide. Who owns the crime scene, you or the cops? Now, technically, the police own the scene and I own the body. Nobody's supposed to touch my body until I get in there. And I don't mess with their scene. I don't lift fingerprints, they do. So they own the scene in terms of what it tells them in their bailiwick and what they do, the blood spatter analysis, the fingerprints, things like that. But, it's silly to even think that we don't interact. We each own the scene because the body, my body, is what makes that a crime scene. Without it, it's just a home. Do you ever talk to dead bodies? Involuntarily, there have been times when I've seen something really brutal and I'm looking and I say, God, you poor thing, I hope you didn't suffer for long. One thing I do with a lot of dead people, particularly those who've died tragically or violently, is I make a little mark. I just sort of make a little sign of the cross or a little star, in the air over their head, just a way to, not bless them so much as just send them along to their maker. Just a little habit of mine.
Do you ever find that emotion can get the better of you in those moments? But are there any times that it overcomes you?
Many times my emotions have overcome me when I see a death like that. Tragic, brutal, painful, grief, anger, sadness. And it's so strong that I cannot do my job effectively. I'm no use to the victims or the family if I can't drop a curtain and stop that emotion. I close down, I shut down my heart and open up my brain, and I do my job carefully, pay attention to the forensics, and I try not to think about what happened to them. And it's successful. But here's the problem. Sometimes when you're shutting yourself down every day, it's very hard to open up again. And so when I go home to my partner and hear things like, I really like it if you could paint this kitchen. I'm so sick of this color. Or why don't you plan us a vacation in Florida? And I'm thinking, have you no idea of what I've seen today? And I get angry. And that's not fair, of course. I signed up for this. You didn't. But yeah, that's a real hard thing. But I learned to open up again. It took many years. In fact, it's only about 2-3 years ago that I feel truly open. Most memorable investigation. Of course, it had to be 9/11. The World Trade Center attack. Yeah, beyond memorable. Something I can't let go of. I can't ever forget. For its sheer horror, its tragedy, fundamental unfairness, and randomness. All these nice people going to work, having a good day, being with their colleagues, their friends, looking forward to see their family later. Shot down, bombed, burned. For nothing. Absolutely nothing.
How did you and your colleagues identify the bodies after 9/11?
Very few of those victims had a whole body. Most of them were in fragments. To illustrate that, we had, 22,000 body fragments representing 2,275 people. That shows you how shattered those bodies were. The methods of identification were forensic odontology, and that's where you could find some teeth with, say, fillings or dental work in them. And then we asked all the families, please submit us his dental x-rays or her dental x-rays from your local practitioner. We could sometimes match them. Fingerprints, of course, but so many people, their fingers were either destroyed and burned or waterlogged, so many things. Tattoos, wedding rings, especially if they were engraved inside. That's a terrible thing to find, by the way. A hand comes to you when you're working the line, there's a wedding ring. And inside it says, Joey and Joanna forever, things like that. Not good. What else did we use? We used forensic anthropology, the size of a skull or the pelvic bones, tell us if this is a male or a female or the approximate age. And then DNA. New methods were developed for extracting DNA from a biological specimen. Didn't always work, but when it did, it was a miracle. And we have identified bodies that way, but the tiniest little bone fragment. What mistakes do killers make when burying a body? First of all, burying a body is not a great idea. It gives a location where the police are going to find that body eventually because someone's going to walk by with their dog and see this weird-looking area in the ground. And what they see mostly is the depression. If you dig a hole in the ground, say a rectangle, put in a body, and then throw the dirt back up on top of it, that dirt has air in it. So as the dirt settles, it pushes out the air, and that area will be depressed, sometimes as much as 8, 9, 10 inches. So you look at that and say, something's under there. Or you see plants growing in a different way. You can be in a field of grass stalks, and then in one area, there's these very, very green grass stalks. Why? Fertilizer. Human beings are organic fertilizer. I remember going out on a case looking for the woman Irene Silverman, who was murdered by 2 grifters. And I went out and looked in a field in New Jersey with a psychic, actually, who told me she could find it using a divining rod. No, that didn't happen. We never did find her, but we're pretty sure she's in the foundation of a building that was erected next to hers. Never will find her. That was sad. How good does it feel to crack a case? Oh, it is so good. You have no idea the satisfaction when you can stop a killer. And, it's not necessarily, I don't crack the case. Detectives do. I'm the one that provides them the evidence and the information to crack the case. But when Aaron Key, the serial killer of little girls, after he had killed, 10, 11 little adolescent girls, and when I got to court and I was able to testify about that, what I had seen, and to describe to that jury what it's like to find a little girl set on fire, enormously satisfying. Even as I recited the gruesome details, I couldn't help but think, this will give you a reason to put him away forever. Have you ever gotten the cause of death wrong? No. And as I may have mentioned before, my job is to get the manner of death. If the cause of death is a gunshot, then it's either a homicide, a suicide, or an accident. When you think, how often do you have an accidental gunshot wound? I had a kid out on Houston Street in New York, went out and bought his first gun, a Saturday night special, very cheap, flimsy revolver. And he was with his friends, and he was showing them his little cowboy tricks, spinning the gun on his finger. And of course, it flew off, the hammer hit the ground, and it shot him straight between the eyes. So his first shot was his best shot, was his last shot. Foolish, right? And everyone thought, no way. His friend shot him. This is a homicide. And I insisted, nope. There's something funny about the hammer of the gun, that little mark on the metal. There's something about the precision of shooting him straight between the eyes. Why would he hold still when his friends were shooting him? No, he'd turn, he'd put his arm up, right between the eyes. And I swore this was an accident and, a misadventure, death by misadventure. And sure enough, a day later, a guy who had been driving along Houston Street called the police and said, listen, I saw some kids out there playing with guns, and I think one of them shot himself by mistake. What's the most gruesome murder scene you've been to? I don't want to tell you because you don't want to know. In your opinion, what's the worst way to die? I think drowning, for me personally. The idea of air hunger, of choking and struggling and inhaling water and vomiting, that sounds like a really, really awful way to die. What happens to the body in the 24 hours after death? All right, where do you live and what temperature is it? What season is it? In the first 24 hours after death, the first thing that happens is rigor mortis. When you run down the street or you work out, there's chemical reactions that take place that keep your muscles moving. And they have byproducts that make your muscles stiff. And that's why it hurts sometimes after you've done a big workout. However, if your blood is no longer circulating, it can't wash away or break down these chemicals in your blood. And so they stay in the muscle fibers and they stiffen the muscle. And it happens from the small muscles to the large. Now, people think it happens from head down, but it doesn't. It happens in the jaw muscles, the neck, the fingers, and gradually goes to the larger muscles. And it happens over time. It's a progression. In about 24 hours, you'll go into full rigor in the first, let's say, 8 to 10 hours. Then you'll stay in full rigor for another maybe 12 hours, and then you'll gradually come out. So I can tell if a person is coming into rigor or is going out of rigor by the order of what the muscles are doing. And I use that to establish the time of death. And that's one of the things that happens. The other thing is the bacteria run wild. They start giving off gases, bloating the body, and the blood settles by gravity. If you're laying on your back, your blood will all settle into your back eventually. And it happens over time, and I can use that to tell how long you've been dead. And, of course, body temperature. I use a rectal thermometer, with a condom, of course, and get the temperature of the body. In an average room of, say, 72 degrees, 70 degrees, the body loses 1.5 degrees of temperature per hour. I've seen mummies, a guy that died in a squat building, where there's an abandoned building and they just move in and live there in the cold without water or electricity. This guy was an actual mummy. It was just a skeleton and leathery bits of skin covering him. And there were no organs. I remember saying to the cop, I don't see any organs inside him, not even dried organs. And he says, it was so cold this winter, the rats crawled inside him and ate all the organs, and they could stay warm in there while they feasted. And so, the rest of them just dried up and became a mummy. That was memorable because when I took his hand to turn the body over, it came off. So that's what mummies are like. How can you tell if somebody's been murdered? That's a very complex question. It's a matter of elimination. We call it ruling out. We're ruling out homicide. So we're going to look, is there any possibility that this is an accident? Is this gunshot wound, could it have come through the window? Sure. That happens not a lot, but often enough that it's notable. Kids, gang members shooting off their little guns in the streets and goes through a window, sometimes hits someone. So you walk in, there's somebody with a gunshot wound to the head, there's no gun there, nothing. Well, you go and look around at the windows. If there's a little bullet hole, now you know where to go. But there are so many ways to kill people. poisons and smothering and gases and gunshots and knives and you name it, there's a good way to die. So it's a confluence. It's a way to rule out accidents. You rule out suicide. And then what you're left with, if it's not natural, is a homicide. What happens to corpses left in water? Washerwoman hands with the skin puckers the longer they're in the water. That basically happens. But now, what kind of water are we talking about? In a bathtub, you're certainly going to get the flesh will become somewhat softer. Maybe the skin will slough off. And you'll see those wrinkles in the fingers and the feet. If we're talking about, let's say, the East River here in New York, now there are crabs in that water. There are fish in that water. And what do? They begin eating the body. And they go for the things that are most easy to pull off, the nose, ears, fingers. So sometimes you pull a body out of the river and it looks just god-awful. It's all white and pasty, and you see all these injuries. But what we know is these injuries are post-mortem. Why is that? If you're injured, if somebody slices you with a knife or pulls some flesh, you get an inflammatory reaction, a vital reaction, we call it. All the blood rushes to the area, and all the white blood cells go there to help heal or kill the bacteria. If it happens after death, this trauma, it's just white skin, no blood, no inflammation. I went to a case once where the police were so angry. They were out in the hall and they said to me, someone tortured this old guy. They beat him and they just burned him with cigarettes. This is horrible. And I went in and I saw an elderly man. His eyelids were all puffed out. There was red fluid dribbling from his mouth. And they were it looked like little burns on his chin. And the cop said, see what they did to him? Nope. Perfectly natural death. As the bacteria began to do their actions after he died, the gases they produced caused his eyes to swell. So we know that's post-mortem. The fluid running from his mouth, it wasn't blood, it's purge. After you're dead, the cells gradually break down and all the fluids begin to leak from your body, from the nose, the mouth, the anal area. And those little cigarette burns? No, they were roach bites. After he died, roaches just come on in there and they eat away the top layers of skin. Now, are they reddened like a burn would be? No, they're not. They're just like crusty looking. So that's what happens. Artifacts, whether it's in the water or on the land, there are ways I can tell if something is trauma or not. How does it feel to work on cases involving children? It feels horrible, horrible. Children die senseless deaths. We used to have, you'd go to it as an individual to investigate a sudden infant death, which is a natural form of death. And it was so disturbing that when I became director, I made it that 2 people have to go out and do that death. Why? Does it help the investigation? No, but it helps the investigators because it's awful. I've seen children murdered. I've seen a family slaughtered, the Cherry family, and the little boy laying between his parents, each of them shot in the head. 2, 3. And it broke my heart, and it still does. I can't bear to see children murdered. Let's see. Do you believe in the death penalty for the worst killers? No. I don't believe that we have any right to take any life no matter what. Even that of a serial killer or a rapist or a terrorist. No. Lock them in prison without books, TV, just the same old meal every day. Put them in a solitary cell. I don't care. But we can't take lives. My belief, anyway. Why is speaking about death such a taboo? Fear. Everyone who sees a death or hears about a death thinks for just a second, it could have been me. He's only 35. Why did he die? How did he get a heart attack at 35? Maybe I have a heart. Yeah, they get like terrified. If it could happen to him, it could happen to me. I don't mind it at all. Part of life. Okay, what do you think makes you good at your job? I have an intense desire to be good at things. As the oldest of 9 children, I like to take care of things. I'm hyper responsible. I like to make sure everything happens correctly and that no one gets away with bad things like killing people. So it's that emotional drive. And I'm very observant. I love looking at things and I love understanding what those things mean. So I'll leave it there. Are you afraid of dying? Nope. I'm actually in a very, very happy place in my life, extremely happy. Look at the fun job I have. I even have love. I mean, it's wonderful. So I am conscious of every single day that I'm given as a gift. And I love every second of it. I don't want to die. But when I do, my hope is that I get to find out everything, that the higher power, the being, the universe, explain how did the universe get created? How did human beings come about? Just tell me everything, because I'm so curious and I would love to know what the world is about.
You could literally look through her ribs and see her lung. And in life, she had been this way. This was not decomposition. She was literally rotting while alive.